Mara Delgado opened the app at 4:47 a.m., coffee still steaming in the cup holder, the car seat she'd bought for other people's kids strapped in back. A red banner filled the screen, account deactivated. She didn't panic. She took a screenshot. The message read, "A rider reported unsafe conduct. This decision is final." No name, no date, no trip. 8,412 rides. A 4.99 rating. Gone in one sentence. There was no human to call. But there was one thing the algorithm didn't know I had, mounted on my windshield since my very first fare. If you've ever been reduced to a line of code by a company that never saw your face, this story is for you. Subscribe and comment what city you drive or ride in. I want to see how far this story travels. Mara Delgado woke before her alarm, the way she always did. 3 years of pre-dawn shifts had wired her body to a clock that didn't need reminding. The apartment was dark. Teo was still asleep down the hall, one arm thrown over the edge of his bed the way he'd slept since he was 4. She stood in the kitchen for a moment and let the coffee maker do its slow work. She didn't rush it. The good part of the morning was this quiet, before the world woke up and started asking things of her. She poured the coffee into the steel travel mug Teo had given her for her birthday. It had a small dent in the side now. She liked the dent. It meant she used it. Outside, the air was cool and smelled like rain that hadn't come yet. Her car sat under the one streetlight that still worked, a gray sedan she kept cleaner than her own living room. She opened the door, set the coffee in the cup holder, and let the engine warm. In the back seat sat the child's booster she kept for the families who ordered a ride with a kid and never thought to bring one. Nobody paid her extra for that seat. She kept it anyway. There was a rhythm to how she started. Water bottles in the door pocket, checked. 2 phone chargers, one for each common cable, coiled in the console. A little basket of mints nobody asked for. And on the windshield, mounted low so it never blocked her view, the dash cam. She reached up and tapped it once out of habit, the way some people touch a doorframe on the way out. A small green light blinked on. Front and rear, it recorded everything. It always had. She'd put it in the first week she started driving. A friend of hers, another woman who drove nights, had once been accused by a rider of speeding, of driving recklessly, and she'd had nothing. No proof. Just her word against a stranger's. And the platform had believed the stranger. Her friend lost 2 weeks of pay over it. So Mara bought the camera before she'd even taken her first fare. It recorded front and back, every trip, and it backed itself up to the cloud on her phone at the end of each night. She never thought she'd need it. It just ran. She barely noticed the light anymore. It was part of the car, like the mirror or the wheel. She pulled out at 4:47 a.m. For her first run, an airport pickup on the far side of the metro. The roads were empty, and hers. This was the part of the job she'd fought for. Back when she worked the warehouse, they'd cut her hours without warning, moved her to a swing shift that meant she was never home when Teo left for school, and never home when he got back. She'd come home to find him doing his homework alone at the kitchen table, dinner some cereal he'd poured himself. That wasn't a life. That was just paying rent to exist. Driving fixed it. She chose her hours. She dropped Teo at school every single morning and was in the pickup line every afternoon. She drove the pre-dawn runs while he slept, came home before he woke, made his breakfast. And by the time he was gone, she was back out for the daytime fares. It was hers. She owned the day. For the first time in years, nobody could take her hours away with a memo taped to a break room wall. She'd earned her place. She knew that without pride, the way you know a fact. 8,412 rides. A rating of 4,199. She'd looked at the number the night before, not to gloat, just the way you check a lock before bed. 4.99. You couldn't do better than that without being perfect, and nobody was perfect. So it meant that in 3 years of strangers climbing into her car at every hour, almost every single one had gotten out and thought, that was good. That woman was good at this. She knew her regulars. Mr. Okoye, the retired teacher who went to dialysis on Tuesdays and Thursdays and needed the act turned low because the cold made his hands ache. She'd learned that in the second week and never forgot it. The night nurses coming off the 12-hour shift at County, the ones nobody else wanted to drive because their pickups were at 3 a.m. in a bad part of the parking structure. Mara drove them. She kept the water cold for them. She knew which one had a new baby at home and asked about him, and knew which one didn't want to talk at all and gave her that silence. That was the job, not the driving. The driving was easy. The job was the 1,000 small things nobody measured and nobody paid for. The things that turned a stranger's worst hour of the night into something a little softer. She was good at those. She'd built her whole life on being good at them. The airport run went clean. A businessman, half asleep, tipped through the app and mumbled a thank you. She was home by 6, made Teo scrambled eggs the way he liked, overcooked and a little dry, and dropped him at school by 8. Ordinary. A good ordinary. The kind she'd have traded anything for a few years back, and now got to have every single day. That was Monday. Tuesday started the same. The alarm she didn't need. The dark kitchen. The coffee steaming into the dented mug. Teo's arm over the edge of the bed. She let herself have the quiet. Outside, the same cool air, the same broken streetlight, the same car she kept cleaner than her home. Water bottles, chargers, mints, the booster in the back for other people's children. She tapped the dash cam. Green light. She sat down, set the coffee in the cup holder, and opened the app to accept her first pre-dawn run. The screen was red. Not a notification. Not a message tucked into the corner. The whole screen. A red banner across the top, and under it, in white letters that didn't blink or move, account deactivated. She looked at it for a long moment. The coffee steamed beside her hand. The green light on the dash cam blinked. Faithful. Recording an empty car going nowhere. She read the words again to be sure she'd read them right. She did not panic. That surprised her. Later, when she thought about it, there was no rush of heat, no sick drop in her stomach, just a stillness, the kind you get when something is so wrong your body decides to wait for more information before it decides how to feel. Her thumb moved before her mind did. She took a screenshot. Then she took another. Her first instinct was not to argue with the red words. Her first instinct was to keep them, to preserve them exactly as they were before anyone could change them. She tapped the banner. It opened a message. She read it slowly, once, and then again. A writer reported unsafe conduct. This decision is final. That was all. No name, no date, no trip, no ride number, no route, no time. Nothing she could point to and say, that one, I remember that one, here's what happened. Just a rider, some rider. Unsafe conduct. As if she were a stranger to them, as if the 8,412 times she delivered a person safely to their door meant nothing next to one anonymous sentence. This decision is final. The door wasn't just closed. It had never been a door. It was a wall, with a red light on it, and she was standing on the wrong side. She sat in the driver's seat of her spotless car, with the coffee going cold and the dash cam blinking its little green eye. And she understood two things at once. She had lost her job. And she had not been told why. Would not be told why. And there was no line at the bottom of the message that said, if you believe this is a mistake, here's who to call. She scrolled down looking for it anyway. There was a link. Contact support. She pressed it. A chat window opened. A cheerful little icon. A message typed itself out letter by letter, the way a person would type, except no person was typing. Hi Mara, I'm the Ride Nova support assistant. How can I help you today? She typed with her thumbs, steady, my account has been deactivated. I want to know why, and I want to appeal. The little dots pulsed. Then, I'm sorry to hear you're having trouble. I've found your account. It looks like there was a trust and safety decision on your account. Unfortunately, these decisions are final and can't be reversed through chat. Is there anything else I can help you with? She typed, I've done 8,412 rides at a 4.99 rating. What was the complaint? What ride? What date? The dots. Then, I understand your frustration. For privacy and safety reasons, RideNova does not disclose the details of trust and safety reports. Is there anything else I can help you with today? She stared at that last line. Is there anything else I can help you with today? As if it had helped with anything at all. As if the machine had a today, a schedule, a to-do list it was working down, and she was an item to be checked off. She typed one more time. I want to speak to a human. I can connect you to a support specialist. Current wait time is approximately 45 minutes. Would you like to continue? Yes. She waited. She called Teo in from his room and made his eggs one-handed. The phone propped against the sugar jar, the chat window open. She dropped him at school with the phone still connected, the little hold music tinny through the dashboard speaker. 45 minutes became an hour. She parked outside the school and waited. She didn't have anywhere to drive. That was the strange part. Her whole day, the day she owned, and there was nowhere to point the car. At last, the music stopped. A voice came on, far away, an echo behind it like a large room full of other voices saying the same things. Thank you for contacting RideNova. My name is Josh. Can I get the email address on your account? She gave it. She heard him typing. She heard him breathe. Okay, Miss Delgado. I see here your account has a trust and safety deactivation. I'm very sorry about that. Unfortunately, that's a final decision, and it's not something we're able to discuss or reverse from my department. Can you tell me what the complaint was? Mara said. Her voice was level. She was proud of that. Later, just the date. Just tell me the day it happened. I'll tell you exactly what happened on that day. I understand, ma'am. I really do. But I'm not able to see those details on my end, and even if I could, we're not able to disclose them. The decision is final, and it can't be discussed. So there's nobody. There's nobody I can call. There's no person who looks at this and decides. A pause. She could hear him choosing from a list of things he was allowed to say. The trust and safety team handles those decisions, and they don't take calls. I'm really sorry. Is there anything else I can help you with today? There it was again. Today, she almost laughed. She didn't. She said thank you. Because he was a person too. A person in a faraway room reading a script he hadn't written. And she hung up. She called Priya. Priya Malhotra had driven for 4 years before her back gave out. And now she ran the local gig workers association out of a rented room above a laundromat. She'd heard 1,000 of these stories. When Mara told her, calm and flat, exactly what the message said, and exactly what the man named Josh had said, Priya was quiet for a second. Read me the message again, Priya said, the exact words. Mara read it. A rider reported unsafe conduct. This decision is final. No date, no ride, no name. Nothing, Priya exhaled, and Mara could hear the old anger in it, worn smooth from use. They do it this way on purpose. If they gave you a date, you could fight it. If they gave you a rider, you could prove they lied. So they give you nothing, and nothing can't be argued with. You can't appeal a fog. I've done 8,000 rides, Priya, I know. 4.99. I know, Mara, I know. It doesn't matter to them. That's the part that breaks people. It genuinely does not matter. You could have 10,000 rides and a medal from the mayor. One anonymous sentence outweighs all of it, because the sentence has liability attached, and your 10,000 rides don't. Mara sat with that. Outside the school, kids were spilling out for recess, small and loud behind the chain link. She'd have been driving now. A late morning airport run, maybe, or a hospital pickup. Stay on the line, Priya said. Put the support chat back on speaker. I want to hear it myself. So Mara did. She reopened the chat and typed the same questions, and the same cheerful assistant gave the same cheerful non-answers, and Priya listened to all of it, in silence, on the other line. When the bot signed off with "Is there anything else I can help you with today?" Priya made a small sound, not quite a word. "You heard it," Mara said. "I heard it. I've heard it 100 times and it still does that to me. It's the friendliness. That's the cruelty of it. It's so happy to help you with the thing it will never help you with." Mara looked down at her own screen. Under the red banner, under the deactivation, the app had not fully let go of her. There, in the corner where her next scheduled pickup would normally sit, was a little coffee cup icon. The app's cheerful way of saying good morning to a driver about to start a shift. It was still there. It still thought she was coming. The company had erased her, cut her off, walled her out with a red light, and the same app was quietly greeting her like nothing had happened, showing her the ghost of a ride she could no longer accept. "Good morning, driver. Ready to start earning?" She almost smiled. It wasn't a good smile. "There's a coffee cup on my screen," she told Priya. "Like it's wishing me a good shift." Priya didn't laugh. "That's the part I hate most," she said. "Come by the office. Bring the screenshots. Bring everything." Mara didn't go to the office that day. She didn't fully believe yet, not in her body, that it would hold. Something in her still expected to wake Wednesday and find the red gone. An apology in its place. A note saying, "We made an error. We're sorry. You're one of our best." She'd done everything right. She still believed, somewhere under the flat calm, that doing everything right was a kind of armor. That the record protected you. That the numbers meant something to the people who kept them. So Wednesday she tried the app again. Red. Thursday she tried again. Though rent was due Friday, and she'd started to feel the first real cold of it. Red. Thursday afternoon she made a mistake. And she knew it was a mistake even as she did it, but she did it anyway. She drove out to the airport driver staging lot. She told herself she just wanted to see. Maybe it was a glitch in the app and the badge would still scan. Maybe out there, in the physical place where the drivers actually gathered, there'd be a person. A lot attendant. Someone with a clipboard and a face, who could look at her and see a person instead of a line in a file. The staging lot sat in a flat gravel expanse off the airport's service road, a place most travelers never saw. Drivers parked there in long, patient rows, waiting for the system to release them to the terminals one by one. Mara had spent 1,000 hours of her life in that lot. She knew the vending machine that $8. She knew the one clean restroom and the 3 that weren't. She knew the drivers by their cars, if not their names. The man with the blue rosary on his mirror. The woman who did needlepoint between fares. There was a board at the entrance now, a shared digital display the airport had put in the year before. It showed the queue, the wait times, and a rolling leaderboard. The top drivers of the week by rating and volume. It was a small vanity, that board, but the drivers liked it. It was the one place the numbers showed. Last week, Mara's name had been at the top of it. Number 1. She'd noticed it Monday and felt nothing much, just a small private nod. Good week. She pulled up to the entry gate and held her phone to the scanner the way she'd done 1,000 times. It beeped wrong. A low, flat, ugly tone. The little light on the scanner went red. She tried again. Same tone. Same red light. Behind her, a car waited. She could see the driver in her mirror, watching. Not impatient yet, just watching. She tried a third time, and the scanner refused her a third time. And then something worse happened. The big shared board at the gate, the one with the leaderboard, the one where her name had sat at number 1, flickered as her badge hit the scanner. And where her name should have been, in the slot the system still had her mapped to, a word appeared in red. Deactivated. It sat there on the board, bright, in front of everyone. Where Mara D had been number 1 for the week, now there was that single red word, and the queue behind her had grown to 4 cars, 5, and drivers were leaning to look, because that's what people do. They look at a red word on a board, they can't help it. She heard someone say her name. a question. Mara? She didn't turn. 20-some drivers in that lot, some she knew by face, some who knew her by that leaderboard, all of them watching a woman get spat back out by a scanner, while the board announced why in a word that meant, to every driver there, the one thing they all feared most in the dark. Deactivated. The unexplained death. The thing that happened to other people until it happened to you. A driver near the front, an older man she half recognized, walked over as she was backing out. He had his own phone in his hand. He'd been reading something, one of the driver forums maybe, and he said, not unkindly, the way you'd read a weather report, they don't tell you. My cousin got it. You call and the robot says the same thing every time, and then he read it aloud, off his own screen, off some email a driver had once posted, the exact policy language in the exact words. We don't disclose the nature of complaints. Reactivation is not available. He said it flat, like scripture everyone had memorized. That's it. That's all they say. Forever, Mara backed out of the gate line with the whole lot watching, the red words still burning on the board behind her, and she drove home. She did not cry. She wanted to note that for herself, as a fact. She did not cry in the car. She drove the speed limit, both hands on the wheel, past the vending machine and the clean restroom, and the man with the blue rosary. Out of the lot she'd owned a piece of for 3 years, and the green light on her dash cam blinked the whole way, recording a deactivated driver leaving for the last time. Friday was rent. $1,340. She had most of it, not all. She'd have had all of it and more by Friday if she'd been driving. That was the arithmetic that finally made it real in her body. Not the red word, not the board, but the number 1340 and the smaller number in her account, and the gap between them where 4 days of fares should have been. And then Teo came home Friday and told her, apologizing before she even understood why, that his field trip check had bounced. The one she'd written Monday morning, before the red screen, back when she'd been a woman with 4.99 and a full week ahead of her. $22 for a bus and a museum ticket, and it had bounced, and now his teacher knew. And he'd stood in front of his class while the teacher pulled him aside and asked quietly if everything was okay at home. He was 11. He apologized to her. That was the thing that got close to breaking her, closer than the board, closer than the bot. Her son standing in the kitchen saying sorry for a bounced check she'd written when she still had a job. His face doing the thing children's faces do when they're trying to be smaller than the problem. It's not your fault, she told him. It's not anything you did. Some grown-ups made a mistake about me, and I'm going to fix it. Okay? It's a mistake and I'm going to fix it. He nodded because he wanted to believe her, and she nodded back because she needed him to. That night, after he was asleep, she sat at the kitchen table with her laptop and she did the thing she'd been circling all week. She stopped waiting for the red to turn back to green on its own. She wrote them a letter, not an angry one. She read it back 3 times to make sure there was nothing in it a machine or a person could use as a reason to dismiss her. It was calm. It was dated. It laid out the facts in plain order. Her account was deactivated Tuesday morning. No reason given, no ride cited, no date provided. She stated her record, the ride count, the rating, the 3 years. And then she made the offer, the one she thought no one could refuse. I have full video and GPS records of every trip I have driven, front and rear camera, backed up and timestamped. I am willing to provide the complete footage and location data of any ride in question. Give me the date and the trip, and I will show you exactly what happened. I am requesting a response within 7 days. She read that part twice. It was a good offer. It was the offer of someone with nothing to hide, someone so sure of her own conduct that she was inviting them to watch it. Show me the ride. I'll show you the truth. There was no way, she thought, no way a company could receive that offer. A driver saying, I have proof. I'll hand it to you. Just tell me which day and simply ignore it. She sent it to the only address the support pages listed. She took a screenshot of the sent message, the timestamp, the whole thing, and she saved it to the same folder where she kept the red banner and the coffee cup icon and every dead reply from the bot. She was building something, though she didn't quite have the word for it yet. A record of the record. A file about the file. 40 minutes later, her phone lit up on the table. An automated reply. She opened it standing up, one hand on the back of the chair. Thank you for contacting Ride Nova. This account has been reviewed. No further action will be taken. This ticket is now closed. 40 minutes. She looked at the clock, then at the timestamp on her own sent message. 40 minutes, in the middle of the night, faster than any human could have read 3 paragraphs and considered them. Her offer of full video, full GPs, the truth of any ride they cared to name, received and closed and buried in 40 minutes by something that never read a word of it. This ticket is now closed. She sat back down. Slowly, she was very calm. She was calmer than she had been all week, and it was a different kind of calm now. Not the shock stillness of Tuesday morning, but something with a floor under it. They didn't want the footage. She'd offered them the truth, and they'd closed the door in 40 minutes without looking. Because looking would take a person, and there were no people. Only the loop. Only the wall with the red light. She understood now that there was no version of this where she asked nicely enough and they said yes. She'd been waiting all week for the mistake to correct itself, for the record to protect her, for someone on the other side to be a person and see her. There was no one on the other side. That was the whole design. Her eyes moved to the corner of the kitchen where she'd set the thing she almost never touched. A small external drive, terabyte-sized, black, unremarkable. It was where her phone dumped the dashcam footage every night when it filled up. Months and months of it, 3 years of it. Every ride front and back. Every timestamp, back to the cloud and mirrored to that drive. She'd bought it and forgotten it. It just filled, quietly in a drawer, the way the green light just blinked, the way the camera just ran. She'd told them she had it. She'd offered it. And they'd close the ticket in 40 minutes rather than name a single date. Because the fog was their weapon and a date would give her something solid to stand on. But there had to be a date. That was the thought that arrived, small and cold and clear, at the kitchen table at 1 a.m. The complaint hadn't come from nowhere. Somewhere in their system it was attached to a specific ride, a specific rider, a specific night. Because their whole machine ran on timestamps. Everything logged, everything mapped, every fare pinned to a minute. They just wouldn't tell her which one. But she had her own log. Every ride she'd ever driven, dated, timed, mapped, sitting in that quiet black drive she'd almost never opened. They had one anonymous sentence and a wall. She had 3 years of footage, and she was about to go looking for the one night it mattered. She reached for the drive. The drive was cold in her hand. She plugged it in, and the folders bloomed on the screen. Thousands of them, named by date, the way her phone had sorted them without ever asking her to think about it. 3 years. She scrolled up to the week before Tuesday, and there it was, the night she'd half remembered while she stood in that airport lot with 20 men watching her badge scan red. Saturday, 1:12 in the morning. She'd cross-referenced her own trip log against the deactivation date, and it left her exactly one candidate. A fare who'd been drinking. She remembered him now, the way you remember a bad smell before you remember a face. Young A, first-time rider, the app had flagged. She opened the file and let it load, and she did not watch it yet. She wasn't ready to watch it yet. First, she wanted the whole thing built. She called Priya at 7 the next morning. "I'm not asking them anymore," she said. "I'm going to make them read it." There was a pause on the line. Then Priya, who'd spent 4 years driving and a lot longer losing, said, "Okay, then we do it right. Nothing they can wave off. They built the file the way you build a wall, one true thing at a time. The front cam footage of the Saturday ride. The rear cam footage. The GPS breadcrumb. Every turn pinned to a minute. Her rating history. 4,099 across 8,412 rides. Exported clean. The screenshots of the closed ticket. The 40-minute rejection. The automated line that said no further action. Priya redacted Teo out of everything. The booster seat blurred. The field trip check that had bounced kept out of it entirely. This wasn't about the boy. This was about the record. They think the fog protects them, Priya said. It only protects them from people who don't have their own copy. You have your own copy. Priya's association drafted the demand letter. It was 3 pages, and it did not plead. It indexed. Every claim tied to a file. Every file tied to a timestamp. And at the bottom, the thing Priya said would matter most. The exact cloud timestamp of the footage and the hash of the file. The digital fingerprint that meant the recording existed on a certain date and had not been touched since. She sent it to Ride Nova's legal address. She copied the state gig worker labor office. Then they waited. The reply came 4 days later, and it came from a lawyer, not a bot, which was itself a kind of victory. Mara read it at the kitchen table with Priya on speaker. The lawyer's letter was polite the way a locked door is polite. It did not address the footage. It did not address the timestamps. It said that all disputes between drivers and Ride Nova were governed by the arbitration clause in the terms of service, that this matter would be handled privately, confidentially, outside any court and outside any public office, and that the labor office had no standing to receive the correspondence. Mara felt the old cold come back. The fog, the wall. The sense that no matter how solid the thing in your hands, they had a bigger hand to sweep it off the table. They're going to bury it, she said. Private, quiet, just me and them in a room again. No, Priya said, and there was something in her voice Mara hadn't heard all week. Read it again. They didn't touch the timestamp. What? The whole letter. 3 paragraphs. They never said the footage doesn't exist. They never said it's wrong. They can't. It's hashed, and it's on their own cloud, too. Dumped there by their own app, on their own servers, on a date they logged themselves. Arbitration hides a dispute. It can't erase a record they're holding. You can drag a fight into a private room. You can't drag a file that's already sitting in the company's own storage. She let it land. They tried the biggest dodge they have, and it didn't touch the one thing that matters. That means they've got nothing else. The demand letter had already named a number. Reinstatement. $9 a day in lost earnings for every day she'd been deactivated. And a written correction of her record. Not a settlement, a correction. That afternoon, Mara finally watched the footage. She made herself do it alone, at the table, with the drive humming and the house quiet. She opened the front cam first. There she was, 1:12 in the morning. The dash lit soft green, the steel travel mug with the dent sitting in the cup holder where it always sat. She heard her own voice, tired and even, offering him water from the door pocket. There's water down there if you want it. She watched herself drive careful, both hands, the way she always drove, every turn matching the breadcrumb exactly. A courteous ride. An uneventful ride. Nothing on that front camera would give any human being on Earth a reason to call her unsafe. Then he got sick. She'd known it was coming, and it still turned her stomach to watch. The rear cam caught all of it, the mess across her back seat, the seat she kept clean for other people's kids. And she remembered pulling over, remembered the smell, remembered asking him calmly if he was all right, and telling him there'd be a cleaning fee, that the app handled it, that it wasn't personal. And then the rear camera caught the thing the algorithm never checked. He was on his own phone, slumped against the door, thumbs moving, and he said it out loud, half to himself, thinking no one could hear, thinking the camera was for show, thinking a dark back seat at 1 in the morning had no witness. He said, "I'll just report her. Then it doesn't count. No fee if she's the problem." Mara sat very still. There it was, the whole thing. The false flag, filmed by the driver it was aimed at, spoken plainly by the man who'd fired it. Sitting in her own quiet black drive the entire week, they told her the decision was final and could not be discussed. He'd been so sure an anonymous complaint left no trace. He'd never once looked at the small green light. She didn't cry. She'd expected she might. Instead, she felt something settle into place, hard and level, like a stone finding the bottom of a well. She called Priya. "It's on the rear cam. He says it. He says he's going to report me so the fee doesn't count. He says it out loud." Priya was quiet for a second. Then, "Send me the clip. We're not asking anymore. We're telling." But it didn't break open clean. It never does. Ride Nova's counsel tried one more dodge, and it was the cruelest one, because it dressed itself up as finality. A short letter. The account, it said, was non-recoverable for policy reasons. Not wrong, not disputed, just closed, for reasons that were, once again, not to be discussed. As if a door could be shut so many times that the shutting itself became the argument. Priya's answer to that was to stop writing to Ride Nova and start writing to the labor office. She requested they open a file. The category she used was precise, and Mara made her read it twice over the phone because she wanted to hold the shape of the words. Automated adverse action without human review. A machine had taken a person's living on the strength of one unverified sentence, and no human had ever looked. That was the thing the office could not ignore, and Ride Nova knew it. And then came the 72 hours that nearly ended it. A quiet offer arrived, not from the lawyer directly, but through him, softly. A number. A good number, better than the $9 a day, paid at once. No fuss, no fight. And attached to it, an enda. Sign, and it goes away. Sign, and you never speak of it, and the footage never surfaces, and the record stays exactly as it is, and you take the money and you're whole again. Financially, at least. Rent covered. Tio's field trip covered. The whole ugly week erased like a stain you'd been paid to forget. Mara sat with that for 3 days. She thought about the rent, $1,340 due Friday. She thought about the check that had bounced, and the look on Tio's face when he'd asked her, careful, in his 11-year-old way, if something was wrong at home. She thought how easy it would be. Sign, and the cold goes away. But she kept coming back to the record. The record would stay. Somewhere in Ride Nova's machine, she would still be the driver a rider reported for unsafe conduct. That sentence still attached to her name, cleared for her privately but corrected nowhere. And the next Mara, whoever she was, driving the 3 a.m. hospital shift nobody else wanted, would get the same red banner over the same anonymous lie, and there'd be no file for her to point to. Because the last one had been paid to disappear. No, she told Priya, the record has to be corrected out loud, or the same thing eats the next driver. Priya was quiet a long moment. When she spoke, there was something almost like grief in it, the sound of a person who had expected to lose for 4 years and was just now, carefully, letting herself believe otherwise. "You know most people sign," she said. "You know that. I know." "Okay," Priya said. "Then it's public." The call came on a Wednesday. A video call, which Mara had not expected. A face, finally, after a week and a half of walls. Denise Okafor, Ride Nova's regional driver success contractor, sitting in front of a beige wall with a headset on, and beside her, small in the corner of the frame, Ride Nova's counsel saying nothing. Denise shared her screen. And there it was, the case file, the actual case file, open at last, forced open by a labor office number and a hash she couldn't dispute. On the left of the shared screen, the closed ticket, the 40-minute auto-rejection, the anonymous sentence. On the right, the timestamp matched footage, Mara's own footage, the file the company had held all along in its own cloud. Denise's voice was flat, the voice of a person reading a thing she has been made to read. The complaint was auto-adjudicated, she said. There was no human review. Mara let that sit in the air. She'd waited 11 days for those words. "Say that again," she said. Not cruel, just even. Denise's jaw tightened. The deactivation was processed automatically. A single flagged complaint met the threshold. It was not seen by a person before your account was closed. Mara looked at the two halves of the screen. The one anonymous sentence on the left. 8,412 rides worth of proof on the right. And she said the thing she'd been carrying since the airport lot. Quiet. Level. The stone at the bottom of the well. "Your system had 8,000 reasons I was safe," she said, "and one anonymous sentence that I wasn't." It picked the sentence. Nobody spoke. The lawyer looked at his hands. The reinstatement was issued on the call. Mara watched Denise do it, watched the account status change from that red word to a green one on the shared screen. The record was annotated. 3 years of it corrected with one word she made them read aloud before they typed it. Cleared, the lost earnings figure, $9 for every day they'd taken from her, was processed while she watched. And because the labor office was copied on the resolution, none of it happened in a private room. It happened on the record, where the next driver could find it. That should have been the end. It wasn't, quite, and Mara found she was glad it wasn't. Because the case was now a labor office file, Ride Nova was required to describe on the record how its false flag process actually worked. And it turned out the machine, pressed to explain itself, could not. It admitted, in the flat language of compliance, that a single unverified complaint could deactivate a driver without any human review at all, that the 8,000 rides didn't weigh against the one sentence, that there was no step in the process where a person looked. The thing the title had promised, the look at the algorithm, was right there in a public file, admitted in the company's own words. Priya's association posted it, anonymized, cleaned of names but keeping every damning line. And then, something happened that Priya had stopped expecting after 4 years. Other drivers surfaced, reinstated ones, deactivated ones, drivers who'd gotten the same red banner over the same fog and had no drive in a drawer to save them. The account the airport lot had opened, that public humiliation in front of 20-plus witnesses, closed in front of those same drivers. The shared board at the staging lot that had flashed, deactivated where her name had been number 1, showed her name again. Restored, some of them saw it happen. As for Colby Reyes, Mara never spoke to him. She never had to. The correction of her record did it automatically. When her file was cleared, the fraudulent complaint attached to it was flagged the way the system flags anything, without judgment, without mercy, a machine doing the one blind thing it does. And the message he got was the exact one he'd weaponized. The same automated bot. His account, it told him, was under review for a false safety report. The cleaning fee he'd dodged, $150, reinstated to his balance. The system he'd used to erase a fee turned its one blind sentence on him. And there was no human on the other side of that either. No one to call. No appeal. No name. And Mara thought that was about right. He'd trusted the fog to hide him. The fog didn't care who it swallowed. 6 months later, it was 4:47 in the morning again. The coffee was steaming in the steel mug with the dent, in the cup holder where it always sat. The dash cam's small green light was on, front and rear, the way it had been since her very first fare, quiet, patient, running whether she thought about it or not. The booster seat was in the back for other people's kids. The mints in the water and the 2 chargers were where they lived. Everything the same. Everything hers again. She still drove the pre-dawn airport runs. Mr. Okoye still rode with her Tuesdays and Thursdays to dialysis. And she still kept the act low the way he liked it. And he'd said nothing about the 11 days she was gone except, "One morning, glad you're back, Mara." And that had been enough. On weekends now, she ran a small clinic through Priya's association. New drivers, mostly, people 3 weeks into the job who thought a good rating was a wall between them and the fog. She taught them one thing above all, said it the same way every time so they'd remember it in the moment it mattered. Record everything. Front and back. Back it up twice. You are the only one who will. Teo rode shotgun some Sundays. 11 going on 12 now. Sorting the association's flyers into stacks on his lap while she drove. Serious about the job the way kids get serious about a thing that matters to someone they love. He didn't ask anymore if something was wrong at home. People wondered, sometimes, if she'd ever heard from Ride Nova after all of it. A real voice. A person. They still can't call me, she'd say, dry, both hands on the wheel. But now their lawyer can. And about Colby, she said nothing at all. There was nothing to say. There was only the small green light on the windshield, running, the way it always ran, the way it had been running the night he thought no one could see. Because that was the whole thing, in the end. A person is not a line of code. But sometimes, the only way to prove it, to a machine that never saw your face, and a company that never meant to, is to keep the receipts that show it. Keep the record. Keep your own copy. Because the fog is only a weapon against people who don't have one. She pulled out of the driveway into the dark, the coffee steaming, the light glowing green, and she went to work. Comment the city you drive or ride in. I want to see how far this one travels. The demand letter arrived at Ride Nova's legal address on a Thursday. Priya had sent it certified, email and physical copy both, CC'd to the state gig worker labor office at the same timestamp. She'd spent 4 days on it. The evidence index alone ran to 3 pages. Mara didn't read it before it went out. She'd approved every word, but she didn't read it again after. She was done reading things that asked for things. She wanted to see what happened when you stopped asking. What happened was 11 days of silence so complete, it felt deliberate. She drove for a competing platform in that time. Lower rates, worse surge zones, a rating system that started her at 0 because her 412 trips didn't transfer. She didn't complain about it to anyone. She got up at the same hour and made the same coffee and drove. She told Teo she was trying something new for a while, and he accepted it the way 11-year-olds accept things they don't fully believe, which is to say he watched her face for a few mornings until he was satisfied she wasn't scared. And then he stopped watching. On the 12th day, a reply came. Not from Denise. From a name neither Mara nor Priya recognized. A title in the signature block that read Regional Outside Counsel, which meant the letter had moved up and sideways and landed somewhere expensive. The reply was 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph said Ride Nova appreciated the concerns raised and took driver safety and platform integrity seriously. The second paragraph invoked the arbitration clause from the Driver Service Agreement, Section 14, subsection C, and suggested that any disputes regarding account status were subject to binding private arbitration and were not appropriate for external labor authority review. Priya called Mara the same hour she got the email. "They're trying to bury it," Priya said, and her voice had the flat, practiced quality of someone who had expected this and still found it tiring. Arbitration, private, their arbitrator, their process, their timeline. No labor office, no public record. Mara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Did you include the cloud hash in the letter?" Priya paused. "The timestamp and the hash key from the backup, yes, it's in the index. Exhibit C." "So they know we have a file they can't touch." "They know. Then they're not burying it. They're scared of it." The thing about invoking arbitration to erase a record is that it only works on records you control. Ride Nova's counsel could pull Mara into a private room with a private arbitrator and offer a quiet number and a non-disclosure agreement and call it resolved. What they could not do was reach into Mara's cloud storage and delete a video file she'd backed up the night it was recorded, timestamped by the platform's own GPS log. Its hash key already cited in a letter, sitting in a state labor office's intake queue. The document existed outside their walls. That was the thing they hadn't planned for, because they had built a system that assumed the only records worth anything were theirs. Priya's response to the arbitration letter went out the same afternoon. It was shorter than the demand letter. It noted that the cloud-stored footage cited in Exhibit C was held by the driver independently of any platform system and was therefore outside the scope of the arbitration clause's evidence provisions. It noted that the demand letter had already been received and logged by the state labor office, and that the office had opened a preliminary intake file number included, date included. It noted that the footage contained material directly relevant to the accuracy of the adverse action taken against the driver's account, and that the driver was prepared to present it in any forum, including a public one. Then it said, in the last line, that the driver would be available for a direct review call with a senior Ride Nova representative within the next 72 hours, and that if no such call was scheduled, the association would request the labor office escalate to a formal inquiry. 72 hours. Mara had never set a deadline before in any of this. She'd sent the appeal that was auto-closed in 40 minutes. She'd called the number that led to a script. She'd been patient and thorough and right, and none of it had moved anything. The deadline moved something. 26 hours later, Denise Okafor sent a calendar invitation for a video call. The subject line read, Account Review, Mara Delgado, Case Reference, 4471, T. Mara accepted it. She wrote nothing in the reply. She spent the remaining time before the call doing nothing special. She drove her shifts. She made Teo dinner. She slept. She was not nervous in the way she thought she would be. Not the shaky, hollowed-out nervous of the morning she'd seen the red banner. This was different, quieter, more like the feeling of having packed everything you need and zipped the bag and knowing you are not going to the airport empty-handed. The call was at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday, 17 days after the red banner, 18 days after Colby Reyes had been sick in her back seat and pulled out his phone and done what he'd done. Denise Okafor appeared on screen. She was somewhere in her 40s, reading glasses pushed up on her head, a logo-branded backdrop behind her that had the soft, generic quality of someone whose actual office was messier than they wanted on camera. She had a second window open on her side, screen sharing on request, and when it populated, Mara could see it was her own driver file. Not a summary. The whole file. There was a quality to Denise's face in the first few seconds of the call, before anyone spoke, that Mara would think about later. It wasn't guilt exactly, and it wasn't hostility. It was the expression of someone who had opened a document they'd been handed and found, inside it, something that required them to be in a room they didn't want to be in. A person who had believed the system was a shortcut to a correct answer and was now looking at evidence that it had been a shortcut to a wrong one. Priya was on the call too. Camera off, listening. Denise said, "Thank you both for your time. I want to start by saying I've reviewed the case file that was submitted with the demand letter, and I want to go through it together." Mara said, "Okay." Denise shared the footage window. Front cam first. The Colby trip, 1:12 in the morning, Saturday, the ride was 9 minutes and 40 seconds. You could see, on the front cam, Mara driving, both hands on the wheel, the streets going by in the amber wash of a city at that hour. You could hear her offer water. You could hear him decline. You could hear, at the 6-minute mark, a sound from the back seat that required no explanation, and you could hear Mara's voice, careful and neutral, saying she'd need to submit a cleaning request at the end of the ride. Then the rear cam. Denise watched it. She didn't say anything while it played. At the 8-minute mark, you could see Colby Reyes, face visible on his phone, typing and then speaking quietly, and what he said was clearly audible on the audio track because the car was otherwise silent. He said he'd just report her so it didn't count. He said it the way people say things they are certain will never be heard by anyone but them. The timestamp on the rear cam matched the trip's GPS log to the second. The GPS log was in the demand letter's Exhibit B. The cloud backup hash was in Exhibit C. The closed ticket receipt, the appeal she'd sent on day 4 that the system had auto-closed in 40 minutes, was in Exhibit A. Denise took her glasses off the top of her head and put them on. She looked at the file for a moment without speaking. Then she said, The complaint was auto-adjudicated. There was no human review. She said it the way you say something true that you wish were less true, flat and direct. The way people speak when the room for softening it has closed. Mara looked at her on the screen for a moment. Then she said, "Your system had 8,000 reasons I was safe and one anonymous sentence that I wasn't." It picked the sentence. Denise didn't answer that. There wasn't an answer for it that was also honest. What followed was not a confrontation. That was the thing about it after. It was almost bureaucratic, which was its own kind of extraordinary. Denise walked through the resolution process the same way she might walk through an onboarding form. The account would be reinstated, effective that afternoon. The deactivation notation in Mara's record would be updated to reflect that the complaint had been reviewed and found to be unsupported by evidence. The record annotation would read cleared. The lost earnings calculation, $9 a day for every day of the deactivation, 17 days at that point and counting, would be processed within 5 business days. The State Labor Office intake file would receive a copy of the resolution. The Labor Office CC had been Priya's addition to the demand letter, and Mara had said nothing about it when she read it, just nodded. She understood it now, in the room, watching Denise's face, as she confirmed the CC. A resolution sent to a labor office is a document. A document in a labor office file is a public record. A public record can be read by anyone who asks. That was the other wall the algorithm hadn't known was there. After the call ended, Priya said, from the phone, "Quiet. How do you feel?" Mara thought about it for a moment. Honestly, the way the question deserved. "Like I can drive tonight," she said. She could, and she did.